The last pass of the season came from Carson Beck going to Dylan Bell for 11 yards on a 4th and 5 at the Texas Christian 24-yard line in the fourth quarter of Georgia's national championship win. 2 plays later, Georgia scored to go up 59-7. A couple plays after that, Max Duggan gets sacked for a 10-yard loss on a fourth down play, and Carson hands it off again, this time to Branson Robinson for another touchdown. Georgia wins. They go up 65-7, spiking the football on a back-to-back national championship season. And in a discussion with Aaron Murray that I think now you can find on YouTube somewhere, um, Aaron and Carson are talking about the coming season, and Carson was talking about how he has not been ready for the position that he's in, which is starting quarterback, until a season ago. And this is the quote from the interview. He says, "I definitely wasn't ready at all. I would say that last year I was probably ready. I learned a lot from that. Not playing much, sitting behind Stetson last year and really trying to buy in and treat every game like I was starting, which was so hard to do when you're not." And he's sitting there talking to Aaron Murray, who went through an entire season in 2009 backing up Joe Cox, even though he never really played. And then a season later, Aaron was the starting quarterback, flushed into a season after going through a quarterback competition with Zach Mettenberger in the spring of 2010. Um, it's challenging to be the starting quarterback at Georgia. I think if you look at the guys who have dealt with that, who have had that burden on them, from Mike Bobo, Quincy Carter, David Green, Shock, Matthew, everybody on up. It's a real challenging thing. In fact, Aaron says it was shocking to me, the attention. It's not shocking to me. And I'm not the person who's taking snaps, but as a person that's covered this team and this program for 23 years, which means longer than Carson Beck has been alive, um, it's not shocking because it is something people talk to me about every single day. It is the constant subject of discussion for people because they really care about their team. And if we're not talking about their team, we're talking about some other team or that person's team. I mean, that person's team could be Carolina, Clemson, Tennessee, Auburn, whoever. It's just in the blood. And I think these two guys, this is something that Aaron was talking about, is they're from Florida and this. And as big a deal as the Gators are, and they are a huge deal, Florida State, Miami, it's not quite in the blood in Florida like it is in the rest of the South, because Florida's not really the South, if we're being honest. It's Florida. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that in a defining it kind of way. I mean, Florida's not like everywhere else in the South. And, you know, the Gators are the biggest thing down there, no doubt, and they've had a rough decade. But, when Aaron picked, I was down there, and it was a very emotional moment for Aaron, his brother, his family, when he picked the Dogs. And there's just no way that someone could be prepared for what was coming. That's what was so shocking for Aaron, was as big a deal as he was at Plant in Tampa, as big a deal as he was in Tampa, you know, it's different as soon as you step on any SEC campus, including in Gainesville, because every single day people think about this. I've been covering this team for 23 years. I've been making a living this way for 23 years. That's how much people care about this. They will they will give up money to see coverage about their team. That's how serious it is. Not, and I'm not talking about paying for a newspaper that was 25 cents a day back in the day. So I think for Carson moving forward here, he understands now. He's been around the block long enough. Now 2020 wasn't normal, and then in 21 he was getting ready. In a way, he was getting ready in 20, but I don't think they really ever thought that he would be the guy. But in 21, that was a very real possibility, and it didn't happen. So he had to kind of grow up through that, and not getting what you want immediately is a growing experience for sure. And so he had to learn how to be a quarterback. Now, he was sitting across from someone. I'm not sure I've ever heard anybody at Georgia that was more prepared than Aaron in terms of getting ready for games, getting ready for the season. He really worked on that aspect of being a quarterback at Georgia. But you hear a lot of this of similar things about Carson Beck. I don't know that I hear it as much as I did with Aaron Murray, but I think with Aaron, it really was kind of a. I mean, it was very noticeable. He was neurotic, and he was in there a lot, learning a lot. Now, the one thing that Aaron benefited from that Carson will not is the entire time that Aaron was the quarterback at Georgia, he had the same offensive coordinator, which is Mike Bobo, who's there now. Carson's had two now, so it's a little bit different. Not a lot. Not just I just have to mention that. But I think, Carson Carson's had to grow up. That's just all there is to it. And it's been almost 5 years, yeah, not quite 5 years since they won the state championship in football at Mandarin. And so it's been some time since Carson's played a game that really, really matters. And the pressure's on him. That will come in September, though. Unless something strange happens and Brock Vandergrift starts in front of Carson at the beginning of the season, which I do not think will happen, uh, we're going to see what happens when Carson throws an interception or a pick six, even. We're going to see what happens when there's pressure on him, when he doesn't play well. I want to see what happens when he doesn't play well. Guys can make layups all day long. I want to see what happens when he's not playing well. What's his reaction going to be? We don't know that because the guy, when he's playing, is out here throwing touchdowns. It's kind of problematic when he's going 26 or 35 for 75% completion rate. He's throwing for 310 yards and four touchdowns with no interceptions. I'm trying to figure out when and where he's struggling or what he's not. He just didn't struggle very much in 2022. Now in 21, yeah, a little bit more, 10 for 23, two touchdowns, two interceptions, 176 yards. That wouldn't cut it, right? But I mean, the only game where he had, I want to make sure I get this correct. Yeah, the only game where he had more than two incompletions, there were two of them, the Sanford game and Vanderbilt. Every other game, he had, not more than one incompletion for the balls that he threw. I mean, that's not bad. Now in 21, I don't know all the context of it. Against Charleston Southern, he was 5 of 10. Against UAB, UAB did not have a good game. I remember that. I remember that. That was not an ideal situation for him. I think he threw a pick six. I might be wrong about that part, but he didn't throw one in 2022. And look, Stetson did not play well against Missouri. He did not play well against Kent State. And Georgia won both those games, one of them by double digits. They had to come back and fight their way through the Missouri game. That's what I want to see. I want to know what it's like. How does Carson Beck respond to challenge? We know now more than we did. And because we know that he doesn't just transfer. Now, everybody that transfers is not a loser. And everybody, particularly quarterbacks, because they want to play. But, you know, he's one of the few guys that was highly rated and considered coming out of high school who is still with his team 4 years later, or his program. Uh, to me, now I don't know Carson Beck really well at all. I dealt with him when he was getting recruited. I know that the family situation is extremely stable, um, etc. But we don't know what we don't know. That's the only problem here. He sure does seem more mature than he was. He said that. Um, I think, though, by the actions is what you're seeing the growth from him. Uh, you know, continuing to develop for him, and not discussing even transferring, even though there was discussion at this point a year ago about him transferring. I don't know that that was ever serious. I just tell you that right now. I don't know that anybody serious was ever saying that out loud about Carson Beck. I mean, I, I'm not aware of that. And what happens, unfortunately, in the .com world that we live in is, folks can say, well, this is not happening. Well, it never came up that I'm aware of. This never was serious. So, you know, the notion that he would transfer was not. I'm not aware of it. I'll put it to you that way. That never bubbled to the surface in any way. That I might not be connected like other folks. I don't know, but um, at the same time, this guy's got a tremendous opportunity to take Georgia to a third national championship, and he'd be on the cover of one of these books that I've got at that stage. I'm assuming. I don't know what the future holds, but um, you know, I am very curious and eager to see what happens here, because I think it's going to be, you're talking about someone who has the throwing capability that from the year 2000, people have said he has the best throwing of anybody here. And that was Dwan Mathis, JT Daniels, Stetson Bennett, Brock Vandegrift, Gunnar Stock, all those guys. It has always firmly been that Beck has had the best throwing ability. And we're going to see if he can play quarterback like Stetson Bennett. We don't know yet, but we're going to see.